Seriously, think about it. Could Smiling Friends have existed anywhere else but on the internet?
Oh, we were right there, man!
This isn't to suggest that the show is lacking in quality. On the contrary, it's actually quite exceptional. I'd even go as far as to say that Smiling Friends revitalized adult animation, proving that you don't need a hyper-meta, emotionally brooding cartoon to create compelling animated content for adults. But it's difficult to imagine a world where the two online animators from Newgrounds and YouTube could have broken into the industry through traditional media outlets like Fox, Comedy Central, or any other major conglomerate. Despite Smiling Friends' success, it was a total gamble at the time. What else do you think it took Zach 2 shows to finally get his series off the ground?
I used to think how TV shows got made, especially animated ones, was you walk in, you go, here's my great idea. They say, well, that is a great idea. Guy off the street, have a show. What I've realized is, especially with animation, 99% of the show, or let's say a majority of the shows that get picked up, are from people that have just worked in the industry long enough. And I don't say that cynically.
Traditional media is often just far too afraid to embrace anything that deviates from the norm, especially if it includes edgier elements. Just look at what happened to Donald Glover's canceled Deadpool series. He's a massive celebrity musician, so try and imagine a small-time YouTuber getting a show produced in that kind of environment. That's why we're fortunate that a channel like Adultswim exists. I mean, have you ever found yourself at home on a weekend after a night out, sobering up from whatever substance you had earlier? Or perhaps for my straight-edge kings and queens, you just wanted to wind down after a night out with the lads and lasses. You settle down on the couch with a cold glass of water, a comfy pillow in hand, and turn on the TV to find some of the strangest television you have ever seen. But somehow, you find yourself utterly transfixed by what you're watching. If this sounds familiar, welcome to the club.
By the way, consider liking the video, subscribing, and dinging the bell. It's a quick and easy click for you, but it means the world to that nasally voice chap, Mr. Boone.
For me, Adultswim actually found its way into my life at an incredibly peculiar time. Sometime I want to say around mid-college, when my parents had just acquired a proper working satellite after years of just having regular Canadian cable. I instantly fell in love with the channel from the moment I set my eyes on it. Now, of course, I had seen it prior to this moment. As a Canadian living close to America, I'd often visit with my family and tune into Cartoon Network, often getting quick glimpses of what I assumed was far too mature for me around 8 to 9 o'clock. But I always held a curiosity for it. Little did I know that years later, when I would turn on Cartoon Network late at night after a night out, I would be exposed to what is perhaps one of the most important channels in the history of television. What I had initially thought was a skit from Robot Chicken turned out to be none other than Moral Oral. You can bet your ass that when I realized what I was watching wasn't just a straight goofy comedy with reference gags machine gunned at me like a string of Family Guy's greatest clips on YouTube, but instead a painfully introspective episode on alcoholism and bad fathering, I began to rethink my life. I'm sure many of you have your own personal experiences with the channel, since many of you voted for this in the polls, as it's been going strong for over 20 years now on public broadcasting. It started out in 2001 when the Turner Broadcasting people were trying to figure out what to do with their various Hanna-Barbera properties. What began as a harmlessly simple method of making money off safe properties ballooned into a channel that now proudly produces some of the strangest shows you will ever watch on television. Adult Swim is to television what punk rock was to the music industry. It absolutely bucked the rules of what you could do and get away with on TV on such a low budget. Other comedies like The Simpsons were made on large budgets with teams of writers from SNL alumni. Adult Swim quite literally took what assets they had and made shows with them. The very first of which being Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which used characters from the original Space Ghost cartoon to produce a totally original talk show where famous celebrity actors, musicians, and directors would be interviewed by a cartoon and his alien friends, Moltar and Zorak. What made this funny, by the way, was the fact that they actually recorded the guest on set dressed in his costume. So you could only imagine the level of seriousness the guests had to maintain while having to look at that for 2 hours. Unsurprisingly, this was the inspiration for Eric Andre and its brand of non-traditional interviews where they pretty much fuck with the guests until they're visibly uncomfortable. Now, while I could give a full rundown of the history of Adult Swim, I'd rather stick to what I find makes the channel so damn important. Hey, if you want me to talk about Aqua Teen Hunger Force, I'm always down, but I could literally yap about that forever. Adult Swim is a channel that allows its creators to go absolutely hog wild with their concepts and ideas. And while not all ideas get off the ground, hell, if you watch my previous video on Zach Hadel, you'll know just how many times the guy tried. Adult Swim isn't exactly the Netflix when it comes to getting things greenlit, even if shows like Mr. Pickles make you think otherwise. Good lord. While channels like Fox were known for their safe bet adult animated programs like Futurama and The Simpsons, Adult Swim was always ahead of the curve. When Fox canceled Family Guy for being too abrasive and edgy, Adult Swim came in to sweep it up and and put it back on its legs after re-airing episodes on the channel. Say what you will about Family Guy's later seasons, but the first season will always hold a special place in my childhood. It was perhaps the most in-your-face and unapologetic about mean-spirited, reference-heavy jokes. Much of why this show is still even around today for Zoomers and kids to watch on their iPads is all thanks to Adultswim. It's hard to imagine any other channel allowing a show like Moral Oral to exist, a scathing satire of Christian beliefs, or a 3D show about a philosophical wandering, angel, I want to say? Xavier Renegade Angel follows whatever the hell the writers were tripping about that day, leading to some of the most hilariously intricate 3D gags that predate even Skibbity Toilet and how absurd it can get. Adultswim not only gave us hours of quality experimental television ranging from insanity of Ballmasters 9009, Smiling Friends, the oddly tranquil vibes of Joe Pera Talks With You, which contrasts hotter than a Ned Flanders metal band. Oh, wait, that is a thing. It also gave various artists their careers, from Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack to the musicians like Flying Lotus, who got his music onto the television bumps in the past. Outside of just the television programming, Adultswim features various artistic bumps that showcase every style of animation, music, and visual style. Much like the late great Roger Corman, who, for those of you who don't know, was the reason why Avatar and The Godfather even exist, whose brand of filmmaking was basically making things on the cheap with emerging filmmakers. Adultswim, with its cheap production philosophy, as well, paved the way for many up-and-coming artists. Shows like Children's Hospital, which initially might have stayed online as a web series forever, were adapted for television. The same happened when Zach Hadel's Smiling Friends absolutely blew up online with its pilot during the April Fool's broadcast. Reacting to just how many people cried out for the show to be a full series, and not just an April Fool's joke, Adultswim gave Zach the opportunity to create the show he always wanted to make, the next step in his animation career that he wanted to take beyond just YouTube. Now, Smiling Friends is one of the top advertised shows on their website, right next to Rick and Morty, and it wouldn't actually surprise me too much if it ended up dwarfing Rick and Morty in the coming years. It is seriously hard to believe that a channel famously known as a hub for stoners and late-night insomniacs is also one of the most artistically inspiring. This is a place where a show about two colorful characters trying to make unhinged people smile, a caveman and his T-Rex companion battling through a primal existence, an alcoholic scientist and his grandson on a zany sci-fi adventure, and a sweet Midwestern man who loves family-friendly movies about driving turtles can all coexist. Of course, the channel has made some questionable decisions, like giving a show to Sam Hyde, which had its moments of humor, mostly thanks to Charles and Nick, but ultimately fell short. Yet it's this very willingness to take risks and give unconventional shows a chance that defines Adultswim. Even when some shows crash and burn, the fact that they were given an opportunity at all is what sets the channel apart. I seriously could not imagine Smiling Friends taking off without the rebellious spirit that drives Adultswim, and for that, I'm grateful such an unhinged channel exists to inspire more artists to create their own offbeat masterpieces, like Smiling Friends.